My wife was sleeping with our marriage counselor, the man I paid $200 hour to save our marriage. I paid Dr. Mark Reed $200 per hour to save my marriage. Instead, he destroyed it by sleeping with my wife. And the worst part? I discovered them together on the same therapy couch where I'd been vulnerable, honest, and desperate to fix what was broken between Sarah and me. Hey Reddit, this is the story of how I walked in on my wife having an affair with our marriage counselor, and how that moment of betrayal revealed that the past 4 months of progress in therapy had been nothing but an elaborate cover for their relationship. I'm Tom, 35 years old, and what I'm about to tell you will make you question whether the people you pay to help you are actually helping or just taking advantage of your vulnerability. You know that sinking feeling when you realize your marriage is in trouble? Not the explosive fights or dramatic moments, but the slow drift where you look at your spouse one day and realize you're roommates who share bills rather than partners who share a life. That's where Sarah and I were about a year ago. And like so many couples who find themselves in that place, we thought therapy could save us. We were wrong. But not because therapy doesn't work, because our therapist was a predator who saw my struggling marriage as an opportunity. Let me start from the beginning, because to understand how completely I was betrayed, you need to understand what our marriage looked like and how we ended up in Dr. Mark Reed's office in the first place. I met Sarah 8 years ago when I was 27 and she was 25. I was working as a software engineer at a tech startup in Austin, making about $85,000 a year. Sarah was a freelance graphic designer making around $45,000, but with dreams of building her own design business. We met at a friend's wedding, connected over shared interests in hiking and photography, and started dating within a month. Sarah was creative, spontaneous, warm. She had this energy that made everything feel more vibrant and alive. I was more analytical, structured, practical. We balanced each other well. She pushed me to be more adventurous. I helped her be more organized. It felt like a perfect partnership. We dated for a year before moving in together. Got engaged at 2 years, married at 3 years in a beautiful outdoor ceremony that Sarah designed herself. She was 28, I was 30, and everything felt like it was falling into place exactly as it should. The first few years of marriage were genuinely good. We traveled when we could afford it, spent weekends exploring Austin's food scene, maintained an active social life with friends. I got promoted to senior software engineer, making $105,000, which helped Sarah feel more comfortable investing in her design business rather than taking every client just for money. 3 years into our marriage, Sarah got pregnant. We were thrilled. Starting a family had always been part of the plan. Our son Jake was born when I was 32 and Sarah was 30. He was perfect, healthy, everything we'd hoped for. But having a baby changed everything, not in the obvious ways everyone warns you about. Yes, we were sleep deprived and stressed and had less couple time, but deeper than that, having Jake exposed cracks in our relationship that had been easy to ignore before. Sarah wanted to scale back her design work to focus on Jake. I don't want to miss his first year. I want to be present, not stressed about client deadlines. That was reasonable. We agreed she'd take on minimal freelance work, maybe $20,000 to $25,000 per year, while I carried most of the financial responsibility. But what that meant in practice was that I worked longer hours to compensate for the reduced household income. I got promoted again to lead software engineer, making $120,000. But the promotion came with more responsibility, more stress, more time at the office. I'd leave at 7 a.m., get home at 7 p.m., exhausted. Sarah would hand Jake to me immediately. I've been with him all day. I need a break. I'd do the evening routine while Sarah had her break. Then we'd both collapse into bed too tired to talk or connect. Our sex life diminished. Our conversations became transactional. Who was picking up groceries, when Jake's doctor appointment was, whether we could afford a new car. We stopped doing date nights, stopped hiking together, stopped taking photos. We became parents who happened to live together, not partners building a life. When Jake turned 3 and started preschool, I thought things would improve. Sarah had more free time. Preschool was 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. 5 days per week. She could return to design work more seriously, have adult time, feel less isolated. But instead, she seemed to resent that I expected her to work more. I'm finally getting a break from constant childcare, and you want me to fill that time with work? I just thought you missed design work. You used to love it. I do love it, But I also love having time to myself, to go to yoga, see friends, not be constantly productive. Fair enough. But financially, we needed her income. My $120,000 salary was good, but in Austin's expensive housing market with a mortgage, childcare costs, and living expenses, we weren't exactly comfortable on one income. We started fighting about money, about division of labor, about my work hours, about her contribution to household finances, about sex or the lack thereof, about the fact that we didn't feel like a couple anymore. 6 months ago, after a particularly bad fight where Sarah accused me of caring more about work than our family, and I accused her of not pulling her weight financially, I suggested marriage counseling. We need help. We're not communicating well. Maybe a professional can give us tools to work through this? Sarah was resistant at first. You think I need therapy? Like I'm the problem? It's not about blame. It's about us. Learning to communicate better to reconnect. Don't you want that? She softened. Yeah, I do. Okay, let's try therapy. I researched marriage counselors in Austin. Dr. Mark Reed came highly recommended, 5-star reviews, credentials from a respected university, specialization in couples therapy and communication issues. His rate was $200 per session, which seemed steep but worth it if he could help us. I booked our first appointment for a Thursday evening. That first session was awkward, like I imagine most first therapy sessions are. Dr. Mark was mid-40s, well-dressed, warm, but professional. He had us sit together on his leather couch, the same couch where I'd later discover him with Sarah, and asked about our relationship history. Tell me how you met, what attracted you to each other, what your marriage was like before things became difficult. We told our story, met at a wedding, dated, fell in love, got married, had Jake. Dr. Mark listened attentively, took occasional notes, nodded encouragingly. And when did things start to shift? Sarah answered first. After Jake was born. Tom started working more, being home less. I felt like I was doing all the parenting alone. I defended myself. I was working more to support our family financially since Sarah scaled back her design work. I came home exhausted and still did evening childcare. I was trying my best. Dr. Mark held up a hand. I'm not here to determine who's right or wrong. I'm here to help you both feel heard, Tom. You feel like you were working hard to provide for your family, and your efforts weren't recognized. Sarah, you felt alone in the parenting even when Tom was home. Both of those experiences can be true simultaneously. It felt good to have someone validate both perspectives without taking sides. We left that first session feeling cautiously optimistic. Over the next few weeks, we had 3 more sessions. Dr. Mark gave us communication exercises, taught us to use I feel statements instead of accusations, encouraged us to schedule date nights and reconnect physically. Some of it felt cliche, but some of it actually helped. Sarah and I were talking more openly, fighting less intensely, but I started noticing changes in Sarah that seemed off. She was more engaged in therapy than I'd ever seen her engage with anything. She'd reference Dr. Mark's advice constantly. Dr. Mark says I need to prioritize my own needs, not just everyone else's. Dr. Mark thinks you should try to be more present when you're home, not just physically there, but mentally there. Dr. Mark helped me understand that I've been sacrificing my identity to motherhood, and I need to reclaim who I am. Every conversation seemed to loop back to Dr. Mark's wisdom. At first, I thought it was good. She was taking therapy seriously, applying the lessons, thinking deeply about our relationship, but it started to feel excessive, like Dr. Mark was becoming this idealized figure in her mind, the person who truly understood her in ways I didn't. About 2 months into therapy, Sarah started dressing differently for our Thursday evening sessions. We'd come straight from work, I'd be in my usual work clothes, jeans, and a button-down, but Sarah would change before therapy, putting on nicer outfits, doing her makeup, styling her hair in ways she didn't do for regular days. You look nice, I'd say. Thanks, I just want to look put together for therapy. It's therapy, not a job interview. I know, but I feel better when I look good. Dr. Mark says self-care is important for mental health. There it was again, Dr. Mark says. Always, Dr. Mark. Sarah also became more secretive with her phone. She'd always been casual about it, leaving it on the counter, not caring if I glanced at notifications. But suddenly she was taking it everywhere, angling the screen away from me, stepping out of the room to respond to texts. Who are you texting? Just Amy, she'd say, referring to her friend, or just responding to a design client inquiry. but her body language said otherwise. She'd get slightly flustered when I asked, quickly putting the phone face down, changing the subject. 3 months into therapy, our progress seemed to stall. The exercises Dr. Mark gave us weren't helping anymore. Our communication wasn't improving. If anything, Sarah seemed more distant, more critical of me, more aligned with Dr. Mark's perspective than with trying to meet me in the middle. In our sessions, I started feeling like it was 2 against 1. Dr. Mark would ask Sarah how she felt about something, and she'd share her grievances. He'd validate her extensively, then he'd ask me, and when I'd share my perspective, he'd gently redirect. I hear you, Tom, but I wonder if you're intellectualizing rather than feeling. Sarah is sharing deep emotional pain. Can you sit with that without defending yourself? I'm not defending myself. I'm explaining my experience. But your explanation dismisses Sarah's feelings. Can you try to just hear her without explaining? It felt like therapy was turning into a space where Sarah's feelings were centered and mine were minimized, but Dr. Mark was the professional, so I trusted his approach. Maybe I was being defensive. Maybe I needed to sit with Sarah's pain more. 4 months into therapy, Sarah started having girls' nights on Friday evenings. She'd go out with friends, come home late, be vague where they'd been. How was girls' night? Good. Needed to decompress. Where'd you go? Just a bar downtown. Why are you interrogating me? I'm not. I'm just asking. Well, it feels like interrogation. Dr. Mark says I need boundaries and space to maintain my sense of self outside our marriage. Dr. Mark says, always Dr. Mark says. Last Thursday, 6 days ago, we had our regular therapy session. Sarah had changed into a nice dress, done her makeup. I was in my work clothes, tired from a long day of debugging code. We sat on Dr. Mark's leather couch, that same couch where we'd sat for every session, where I'd been vulnerable and honest and desperate to fix my marriage. The session felt particularly off. Dr. Mark asked Sarah how she was feeling about our progress. Honestly, I feel like I'm growing, but Tom isn't. I'm doing the work, examining my patterns, trying to change, but Tom's still the same. Working long hours, emotionally unavailable, not really present. I don't know if this marriage can be saved if only one of us is trying. My stomach dropped. Sarah, I am trying. I've been coming to therapy, doing the exercises, trying to be more present. Dr. Mark interrupted gently. Tom, can you hear what Sarah's saying without defending? She's expressing that she doesn't feel your efforts are enough. That's her truth. Can you sit with that? But it's not the truth. I'm working my ass off at my job to support our family and coming home exhausted, but still trying to engage and improve our marriage. What more can I do? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. See? This is what I mean. It's always about how hard you're trying, never about whether what you're doing is actually what I need. The session ended with me feeling defeated and Sarah feeling validated. We drove home in silence. At home, I went straight to Jake's room, read him a bedtime story, tucked him in. When I came out, Sarah was on her phone smiling at something. What's funny? Nothing, just a meme Amy sent. I went to bed early, exhausted and demoralized. Felt like therapy wasn't helping, might actually be making things worse. Dr. Mark was the professional, and Sarah seemed to think he was helping her, so I committed to continuing. Friday morning, I went to work. Typical day, meetings, coding, debugging. Around 3 p.m., I realized I'd left my wallet at Dr. Mark's office the night before. I must have taken it out to check something and set it on the side table, then forgotten to grab it when we left. I called Dr. Mark's office. Voicemail. Hi, Dr. Reed. This is Tom Harrison. I think I left my wallet in your office last night after our session. I'll stop by around 5:30 p.m. to grab it if that's okay. Thanks. At 5:30, I drove to Dr. Mark's office. It was in a professional building, second floor. His practice was the last suite at the end of the hall. When I got to his door, I noticed it was unlocked. A bit unusual, but maybe he'd gotten my voicemail and left it open for me. I opened the door quietly, didn't want to startle him if he was with a client. The waiting area was empty. His office door was closed but not latched. I walked over, about to knock, and heard voices inside. Sarah's voice, my wife's voice. In Dr. Mark's office at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday, when we didn't have a session scheduled. We have to be more careful. Tom's getting suspicious. Dr. Mark's voice responded, He's not suspicious. He's oblivious. He trusts me completely, trusts you completely. We're fine. My hand froze on the door handle. What were they talking about? Why was Sarah here? Sarah laughed softly. I feel terrible sometimes. He's paying you $200 an hour to save our marriage, and you're giving you what he can't? Dr. Mark finished. Emotional connection, understanding, passion. Don't feel guilty. You deserve to be happy. My heart was pounding. I should have knocked, should have announced myself, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I pushed the door open slightly, just enough to see inside. And there they were, on the leather couch, Dr. Mark, Sarah, my wife and our marriage counselor, his hands on her waist, her arms around his neck, kissing deeply, intimately, in ways Sarah and I hadn't kissed in years, the same couch where I'd sat vulnerable and desperate, pouring my heart out about wanting to save my marriage, was now the place where my wife betrayed me with the man I'd paid to help us. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a choke, something, because they broke apart and turned toward the door. Sarah's face went white. Dr. Mark stood up quickly, trying to adjust his disheveled appearance. Tom, Sarah started, but I held up a hand. I couldn't speak, couldn't process. My brain was trying to make sense of what I was seeing, but couldn't reconcile it with reality. Dr. Mark, still maintaining some facade of professionalism, spoke. Tom, this isn't what it looks like. That broke through my shock. It's not what it looks like. You were kissing my wife on the couch where I've been sitting in therapy, where I've been vulnerable and honest and desperate to save my marriage while you... My voice cracked. I couldn't finish. Sarah was crying now. Tom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. We connected emotionally during therapy and things developed. And how long? My voice was cold now, detached. How long has this been going on? They looked at each other. That look told me everything. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been happening. 2 months, Sarah whispered. It started 2 months ago. 2 months. Half of our therapy, half of the time I'd been paying Dr. Mark $200 per session to help us. Half of the time I'd been trusting both of them completely. I looked at Dr. Mark, this professional, this therapist, this man with credentials and good reviews and a responsibility to help people, not exploit them. You've been sleeping with my wife while counseling our marriage? He at least had the decency to look ashamed. Tom, I know this is a significant ethical violation. I'm sorry. Things got complicated emotionally, and I failed to maintain appropriate boundaries. Failed to maintain appropriate boundaries, I repeated flatly. You fucked my wife on your therapy couch while I paid you to save our marriage. That's a bit more than failing to maintain boundaries. Sarah reached toward me. Tom, please, let's talk about this. Don't touch me. I stepped back. Don't come near me. I grabbed my wallet from the side table where I'd left it, looked at both of them one more time. Sarah crying, Dr. Mark looking cornered, both of them caught in the betrayal they'd been orchestrating while I remained oblivious. I'm leaving. Don't follow me. Don't call me. Don't try to explain this away. It's over. I walked out of that office, down the hallway, to the elevator, to my car, got in, sat behind the wheel, and realized I was shaking. My entire body was trembling with shock, rage, devastation. Everything I'd believed for the past 4 months was a lie. The therapy progress, Sarah's engagement with counseling, Dr. Mark's guidance, all of it was a cover for their affair. Every time Sarah had quoted Dr. Mark says, she'd been using his professional advice as justification for her affair. Every time I'd sat on that couch trying to save my marriage, I'd been sitting where they'd been intimate. The man I'd paid, trusted, and listened to had been sleeping with my wife, and Sarah had been using my money, our therapy sessions, and my vulnerability to facilitate her affair. I drove. No destination, just drove through Austin as sunset turned to dusk, my mind replaying everything, all the signs I'd missed. Sarah's changed appearance for therapy sessions, her constant references to Dr. Mark, her secretive phone behavior, her Friday girls' nights that now seemed suspicious, the way therapy sessions had turned into 2 against 1, with Dr. Mark validating Sarah and minimizing me. It had all been deliberate, a manipulation, a betrayal so complete and calculated that I couldn't even process the depth of it. Around 8 p.m., I pulled into a parking lot and sat there in the dark. My phone was full of missed calls and texts from Sarah. I didn't read them. Couldn't. Instead, I called my brother Mike. Hey man, what's up? Mike, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not freak out or try to fix it. Just listen. Okay, I'm listening. Sarah's having an affair with our marriage counselor. I walked in on them at his office on the therapy couch. Silence, then what the fuck? Yeah. Tom, where are you? Are you okay? I'm in a parking lot somewhere. I don't know. I'm not okay, but I will be. I just needed to tell someone, to say it out loud and make it real. Do you want me to come get you? You shouldn't be driving if you're in shock. No, I'm okay to drive. Mike, what do I do? You get a lawyer. Tomorrow. First thing. This isn't just infidelity, Tom. A therapist sleeping with a patient's spouse is a massive ethical violation. He could lose his license. You document everything. You protect yourself and Jake, and you make them both pay for what they did. Mike was right. I needed to stop being shocked and start being strategic. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a professional ethics violation, and I had the power to make sure both of them faced consequences. You're right. Okay, I'm going to a hotel tonight. I can't go home. I'll figure everything out tomorrow. Call me if you need anything at all. I'm here. I checked into a hotel near the airport. Didn't want to risk running into anyone I knew. Lay in the generic hotel bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to stop seeing them together on that couch. My wife, the woman I'd married, the mother of my son, having an affair with our marriage counselor, using our therapy, my money, my vulnerability, my desperate attempts to save our marriage as cover for her betrayal. And Dr. Mark Reed, the professional I'd trusted, had exploited my struggling marriage for his own gratification, had sat across from me week after week, listening to my pain, offering advice, all while sleeping with my wife. It was the most complete betrayal I could imagine. Not just infidelity, but infidelity with the one person who was supposed to be helping us. Not just lying, but using the truth-telling space of therapy as a facade for deception. As I lay there in that hotel room, shocked and devastated, one thought crystallized with absolute, I would make them both pay for this. Not through violence or irrationality, but through the systems designed to hold people accountable for exactly this kind of betrayal. Dr. Mark Reed had violated every ethical standard of his profession, and I was going to make sure the licensing board knew exactly what he'd done. I woke up Saturday morning in that hotel room, feeling hollowed out. The shock had worn off overnight, replaced by cold, analytical clarity. I couldn't change what Sarah and Dr. Mark had done, but I could control what happened next. First call, my brother Mike. I need the name of the best divorce attorney you know. Someone aggressive, someone who won't try to talk me into reconciliation or mediation. Jennifer Walsh. She handled my friend's divorce last year. Tough as nails. Doesn't take any shit. Want me to reach out? Please, tell her it's urgent. Tell her my wife was having an affair with our marriage counselor and I need to move fast. On it. Second call, my mom. I needed to tell her before Sarah did, needed to control the narrative with family. Mom, Sarah and I are getting divorced. She was having an affair with our marriage counselor. I walked in on them yesterday. Silence. Then my mother's voice, tight with anger. That woman, that therapist. Tom, I'm so sorry. What do you need? Can Jake stay with you for a few days? I need to handle logistics without him seeing the fallout? Of course. Bring him over whenever. He can stay as long as needed. Third action. I drove home. It was 8 a.m. on Saturday. Sarah's car was in the driveway. I walked in to find her at the kitchen table, eyes red from crying, looking small and defeated. Tom, please, we need to talk. No, we don't. I'm here to get some clothes and documents. Then I'm picking up Jake and taking him to my mom's. You and I will communicate only through attorneys from this point forward. You can't just take Jake. I'm not taking him. I'm removing him from this situation while we figure out logistics. You're welcome to visit him at my mom's, but he's not staying in this house while we deal with divorce proceedings. Sarah's face crumpled. Tom, I know I hurt you. I know this is awful, but can we please just talk? Try to work through this? I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 8 years, married for 7, had a child with. The woman I'd worked myself to exhaustion trying to provide for. The woman I'd paid $200 per session to save our marriage with, only to discover she was using those sessions to cover her affair. Work through this? Sarah, you've been sleeping with our marriage counselor for 2 months. You used our therapy sessions I paid for, sessions where I was vulnerable and desperate as cover for your affair. You let me sit on that couch pouring my heart out while you were using that same couch to fuck the man I trusted to help us. There's nothing to work through. We're done. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Marriages survive infidelity. Not this one. Not after this kind of betrayal. Do you understand what you did? It wasn't just cheating. It was calculated, deliberate manipulation of the one space that was supposed to be safe and honest. Every time you quoted Dr. Mark says, You were using his professional advice to justify your affair. Every therapy session became part of your lie. That's not a mistake, Sarah. That's a choice you made over and over for 2 months. I walked past her to our bedroom, started packing a bag. She followed, still crying. What about Jake? What are we going to tell him? We'll tell him mom and dad are having some problems and need time apart. He's 6. He doesn't need details. But Sarah, understand this. I'm filing for primary custody. Given what you've done, I don't think any court will deny that request. You can't take my son from me. I'm not taking him from you, but I'm going to be his primary parent. You'll have visitation, you'll still be his mother, but Jake deserves stability, and you've proven you can't provide that. I finished packing, grabbed important documents, our marriage certificate, financial records, Jake's birth certificate, and loaded everything into my car. Then I went to Jake's room. He was playing with Legos, oblivious to the adult catastrophe unfolding around. Hey, buddy, want to have a sleepover at Grandma's for a few days? His face lit up. Really? Can I bring my Legos? All the Legos you want. I packed Jake's things while Sarah watched from the doorway, crying silently. As I carried Jake's bag to the car, I turned to her one last time. I'll have my attorney contact you early next week. Until then, stay away from me. Don't call, don't text, don't try to explain. It's over. I drove Jake to my mom's house. She had prepared his favorite breakfast, pancakes with chocolate chips. While he ate, I explained the situation to her in the other room. I'm for divorce Monday, primary custody. I'll be staying at a hotel for now, looking for an apartment this week. Can Jake stay here until I get settled? Of course. Tom, I'm so proud of how you're handling this. Staying calm, protecting Jake, that takes strength. I don't feel strong, I feel destroyed, but I can't fall apart yet. Not until Jake is protected and the legal stuff is handled. Monday morning, I took a personal day from work and went straight to Jennifer Walsh's office at 8 a.m. She was exactly as Mike had described, mid-40s, sharp, no nonsense. Tell me everything, I told her. The marriage problems, the therapy, the signs I'd missed walking in on Sarah and Dr. Mark, their admission of a 2-month affair. Jennifer took notes, asked clarifying questions, nodded occasionally. This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen. A marriage counselor having an affair with a patient's spouse isn't just infidelity, it's a massive ethical violation. Dr. Mark could lose his license over this. Good, he should. Do you want to pursue that avenue? File a complaint with the licensing board? Absolutely. I want him to face professional consequences for what he did. Jennifer pulled out a form. This is a complaint form for the Texas State Board of Examiners of Marriage and Family Therapists. You'll need to detail what happened, provide dates and evidence, submit it for investigation. It's a separate process from the divorce, but it's powerful leverage. What kind of evidence do I need? Receipts from therapy sessions showing you were an active patient. Any communications referencing the affair, testimony from you witnessing them together. The more documentation, the stronger the case. I had all of that. Months of therapy receipts, $200 per session, adding up to nearly $6,000 paid to Dr. Mark Reed while he was sleeping with my wife. I had the memory of walking in on them, their own admission of a 2-month affair. It was enough. I'll file a complaint today. What about the divorce? I'm filing immediately. We'll cite adultery, seek primary custody for you based on the betrayal and Sarah's poor judgment, request she vacate the marital home, and ask for minimal spousal support given her affair. With this kind of conduct, we have significant leverage. How long will it take? In Texas, there's a 60-day waiting period from filing to finalization, but we can get temporary orders much faster. Custody arrangements, living situations, financial support, probably within 2 weeks. Do it. File everything. I want this moving forward immediately. Jennifer drafted the divorce petition right there. I reviewed it, signed it. She'd have Sarah served by end of day. Next, I spent 2 hours filling out the licensing board complaint. I detailed everything. When we started therapy, the progression of sessions, the signs of inappropriate relationship between Sarah and Dr. Mark, walking in on them, their admission of the affair. I attached copies of all therapy receipts showing the dates we'd been patients while the affair was occurring. I submitted it online and received an automated response. Your complaint has been received and will be reviewed by the board. An investigator will contact you within 10 business days. By 2 p.m. Monday, both processes were in motion. Divorce filed, licensing complaint submitted. I'd taken the first steps toward making Sarah and Dr. Mark face consequences for what they'd done. Tuesday morning, Sarah called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Tom, please, I know you're angry, but we need to talk about Jake, about logistics. Call me back. I texted instead. All communication goes through my attorney, Jennifer Walsh. She'll contact you shortly regarding Jake's custody arrangement and property division. Sarah responded immediately. You don't need to do this through lawyers. We can work this out ourselves like adults. We stopped being able to work things out when you decided to fuck our marriage counselor. Jennifer will be in touch. An hour later, the process server delivered divorce papers to Sarah. According to the server's report, she'd been shocked, had tried to refuse them, had cried, but she'd been served. The divorce was official? Wednesday, Jennifer called. Sarah hired an attorney, Robert Morrison. He's competent but not aggressive. He'll try to negotiate for joint custody and a fair asset split, but he won't fight dirty. That works in our favor. What's the next step? We have a hearing scheduled for next Tuesday to establish temporary orders. Custody arrangement while the divorce is pending, who stays in the house, financial support. Come prepared with documentation of your parenting involvement, financial contributions, and the affair. I spent the week preparing, created a detailed log of my time with Jake, every morning routine I'd handled, every bedtime, every weekend activity, compiled financial records showing I'd paid 100% of our mortgage, 90% of household expenses, all of Jake's preschool costs. Gathered the therapy receipts showing I'd paid $6,000 to Dr. Mark Reed while he was sleeping with my wife. The hearing was straightforward. Jennifer presented our case. I was the more stable parent, primary financial provider, and victim of significant betrayal that called Sarah's judgment into question. Sarah's attorney argued she'd been the primary caregiver while Jake was young and deserved equal custody. The judge reviewed everything and ruled temporary primary custody to me, 60-40 split with Sarah getting every other weekend and 1 weeknight. I'd remain in the marital home. Sarah would pay $400 a month in child support. We'd revisit at the final hearing in 60 days. Sarah looked devastated. Her attorney had clearly told her she'd get $50 custody minimum. Instead, she'd gotten every other weekend parent status. Outside the courtroom, she tried to approach me. Tom, please, this isn't fair. Jake needs his mother. Jake has his mother. Every other weekend and Wednesdays. That's more than you deserve given what you did. I made a mistake. How long are you going to punish me? This isn't punishment, Sarah. It's consequences. You had an affair with our marriage counselor. You used our therapy as cover. You destroyed our marriage and our family. These are the natural results of your choices. 2 weeks after filing the licensing board complaint, I got a call from investigator Patricia Chen from the Texas State Board of Examiners. Mr. Harrison, I'm calling about your complaint against Dr. Mark Reed. I've reviewed your submission and I need to conduct a formal interview. Can you meet me tomorrow? Absolutely. The interview was thorough. Patricia asked about every detail, how we'd chosen Dr. Reed, what the sessions were like, when I'd noticed changes in Sarah's behavior, the exact circumstances of discovering the affair. I walked her through everything, showed her the receipts, described walking in on them on the therapy couch. Patricia took extensive notes. Mr. Harrison, this is a serious violation if proved. A therapist having sexual relations with a current patient's spouse violates multiple ethical standards. Exploitation of therapeutic relationship, breach of professional boundaries, conflict of interest. If substantiated, Dr. Reed would face license suspension or revocation. To substantiate it, I'll interview Dr. Reed. If he denies it, we'll interview your wife. We'll review his records. We'll look for patterns. You'd be surprised how often these cases reveal the perpetrator has done this before. You think he's done this before? In my experience, therapists who violate boundaries this egregiously rarely do it just once. We'll investigate thoroughly. 3 days later, Patricia called again. I interviewed Dr. Reed. He admitted to the relationship, claimed it developed after your therapy had ended, but your receipts prove that's false. You had sessions scheduled through the end of the month, and the affair started 2 months before that. So he lied. Initially, yes. When I confronted him with the receipts showing active therapy during the affair, he changed his story, said the relationship developed organically, and he regrets the ethical lapse. That's an admission of violation. We're moving forward with formal charges. What happens now? He'll have a hearing before the board. He can defend himself, but given his admission and your evidence, The outcome is likely license suspension or revocation. I'll keep you updated. 4 weeks into the divorce process, Sarah's attorney requested mediation. Jennifer called to discuss. They want to settle, avoid the final hearing, work out custody and property division through negotiation. Are you interested? What are they offering? Joint custody, 50-50 split. You keep the house but buy out her equity share. Minimal spousal support for 1 year. Standard division of assets. No, I want primary custody. 60-40 like the temporary orders. She can have some equity from the house, but I'm not doing 50-50 custody after what she did. They're not going to agree to that easily. Then we go to the final hearing and let the judge decide. I'm not negotiating down from protecting Jake. Jennifer conveyed my position. Sarah's attorney came back with a counter. 60-40 custody. I'd buy out $40,000 of her equity over 2 years. No spousal support. It was reasonable. Accept it, I told Jennifer. Let's be done with this. The settlement was formalized. 60 days after filing, my divorce from Sarah was finalized. Primary custody to me, her seeing Jake every other weekend and Wednesdays. I kept the house and would pay her $40,000 over 2 years. No spousal support, clean break. But the licensing board investigation was just heating up. 2 months after filing the complaint, Patricia called with an update that shocked even me. Mr. Harrison, during our investigation into Dr. Reed, 3 other former patients came forward with similar complaints. All women whose marriages were in crisis, all reporting that Dr. Reed became inappropriately close, crossed professional boundaries, and in 2 cases had sexual relationships with them while counseling their marriages. 3 others. 3 that we know of. There may be more who haven't come forward. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern of predatory behavior. Dr. Reed has been exploiting vulnerable women in failing marriages for years. I felt sick. Sarah and I had been one case in a pattern. Dr. Mark Reed wasn't a good therapist who made one mistake. He was a predator who systematically targeted vulnerable women. What happens now? The board is holding a formal hearing next month. With multiple complaints and his own admission of ethical violations, he'll almost certainly lose his license. He may also face civil lawsuits from the other victims. The hearing happened in March, 3 months after I'd walked in on Sarah and Dr. Mark. I attended as a witness, sat in that hearing room, and watched Dr. Mark Reed, the professional I'd trusted, defend himself poorly against overwhelming evidence. The other women testified. One had divorced her husband and dated Dr. Reed for 6 months before realizing he was still pursuing other patients. Another had stayed with her husband but suffered severe trauma from Dr. Reed's manipulation. A third had attempted suicide after Dr. Reed ended their affair abruptly. Each story revealed the same pattern: vulnerable women in failing marriages, Dr. Reed positioning himself as the understanding confidant, relationships developing organically, affairs conducted under the cover of therapy, women left devastated when they realized they'd been exploited. The board's decision was unanimous. Dr. Mark Reed's license was revoked. He was permanently barred from practicing therapy in Texas. He was also referred to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to fraud. He'd billed insurance companies for therapy sessions that were actually affairs. I felt vindicated, but not happy. Dr. Reed losing his license didn't undo the damage, didn't heal the betrayal, didn't fix what he'd broken in 4 marriages and countless lives, but it meant he couldn't do this to anyone else. And that mattered. 6 months after the divorce, I'd settled into a new normal. Jake and I lived in our house, now truly ours without Sarah's presence. We had a routine. I'd adjusted my work hours to be home by 5 p.m. We'd make dinner together, do homework, play games. Wednesday nights and every other weekend, Jake would go to Sarah's apartment for visitation. Sarah had rented a small 2-bedroom place, went back to design work full-time, seemed to be functioning but struggling. Jake would come back from her place quiet sometimes, and when I'd ask about it, he'd say, "Mom seems sad a lot." I felt bad for her briefly, then I'd remember her on that couch with Dr. Mark and the sympathy would evaporate. She'd made her choices. These were the consequences. The social fallout for Sarah had been severe. Our friend group, once shared, had largely sided with me. The few who tried to stay neutral drifted away when they learned the full details, that she'd been sleeping with our marriage counselor, that multiple other women had come forward with similar stories, that Dr. Reed had lost his license. I can't believe Sarah would do that. our friend Lisa said over coffee. Sleeping with your therapist is bad enough, but using marriage counseling as cover, that's sociopathic. Sarah's own family had been mortified. Her mother called to apologize to me. I raised her better than this. I don't know what she was thinking. I'm so sorry for what she put you through. Even Sarah's relationship with Dr. Mark had imploded spectacularly. According to mutual friends who still talk to Sarah, Dr. Mark had blamed her for coming forward to the investigator. If you'd just lied, none of this would have happened. Sarah had blamed him for losing his license and destroying both of their reputations. They'd lasted about 6 weeks after the affair was exposed before turning on each other with mutual recrimination. 9 months after the divorce, I started dating. Not seriously, just casual coffee dates and dinners. I wasn't ready for anything serious. The betrayal was still too fresh, the trust issues too profound. But I met Amy at Jake's school. She was a second-grade teacher, sweet and kind, with a 7-year-old daughter from her own divorce. We started talking at school pickup, discovered we had similar experiences with divorce, started getting coffee while the kids played. My ex cheated with a coworker, Amy, you told me. Not as dramatic as your situation, but I understand the trust issues, the wondering if you'll ever be able to believe someone again. Do you? Believe people again? I'm getting there. It helps that my ex was a specific kind of person, selfish, impulsive, couldn't handle commitment. Not every man is like that. I'm learning to see people for who they are, not who my ex was. Amy was patient with my caution, understanding when I wasn't ready to introduce her to Jake yet, supportive when I had bad days processing the betrayal. A year after the divorce, Amy and I were officially dating. Jake had met her and her daughter Emma, and they got along well. We'd do family activities together, hiking, movies, weekend trips. It felt healthy and normal in ways my marriage to Sarah never had. Sarah, meanwhile, was struggling. She'd tried dating, but men would lose interest when they learned the story of her divorce. Who wants to date someone who had an affair with their marriage counselor? One mutual friend reported her saying bitterly, "That makes me sound crazy or manipulative." She'd tried reconciling with me once, about 10 months after the divorce, called me crying. "Tom, I made such a terrible mistake. I've lost everything. You, my reputation, my friends. Is there any chance we could try again?" "No, Sarah, there isn't. We're divorced. You made your choices. I've moved on." With that, teacher, Jake told me you have a girlfriend. That's none of your business. What happens in my life is separate from you now. I want you to know I'm sorry, truly sorry. I was selfish and stupid, and I destroyed everything good in my life. I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Sarah. 18 months after the divorce, Amy and I moved in together. Her daughter Emma and my son Jake became like siblings. Our blended family functioning better than my nuclear family with Sarah ever had. Amy was a true partner. We split expenses fairly, made decisions together, communicated openly. When we had conflicts, we dealt with them directly without manipulation or games. It was everything my marriage to Sarah had never been. 2 years after discovering the affair, I was 37. Jake was 8. My relationship with Amy was strong and healthy. My career was thriving. I'd been promoted to principal software engineer, was making $145,000, and actually had work-life balance for the first time in years. Sarah was 35, still single, still working as a graphic designer, still seeing Jake every other weekend. She'd grown bitter, according to Jake, would make passive-aggressive comments about me and Amy. "I hope your dad's girlfriend is treating you well, unlike how he treated me." I had to talk to her about that. "Sarah, don't put Jake in the middle of adult issues. Don't make comments about me or Amy to him. He's 8 years old. He doesn't need your bitterness." "I'm not bitter. I'm just honest." "You're bitter. You destroyed our marriage, and now you're upset that I've moved on and found happiness. That's bitterness, not honesty. Keep it away from Jake, or I'll petition to reduce your visitation." She backed off after that, but the damage to her relationship with Jake was done. He started preferring to stay home on her weekends, would ask if he could skip Wednesday visits. He loved his mom, but he didn't enjoy being around her negativity. Looking back now, 2 years later, I can see the affair with Dr. Mark Reed for what it was. The worst thing that happened to me becoming the best thing that could have happened. If I hadn't walked in on them that day, if I'd never discovered the affair, I'd still be in a miserable marriage with someone who didn't value. I'd still be working myself to exhaustion trying to make Sarah happy. I'd still be paying a predatory therapist to manipulate us both. The betrayal freed me. It was brutal and devastating and traumatic, but it also showed me exactly who Sarah was, someone capable of profound deception and selfishness. And it showed me what I deserved, a partner who values honesty, who communicates openly, who sees our relationship as a partnership rather than a resource to exploit. Amy is that partner. Our relationship isn't perfect, but it's real. When we have problems, we talk about them openly, not through a therapist covering an affair. When she needs something, she asks directly, not through manipulation. When I'm stressed about work, she supports me rather than resenting me. That's what marriage should be. What Sarah and I never had and never would have had, even if I'd never discovered the affair. As for Dr. Mark Reed, I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to another state, tried to rebuild his life, but the revocation of his license followed him. He couldn't practice therapy, couldn't get past the ethical violations on his record, ended up working some kind of sales job completely unrelated to his training. Good. He'd spent years exploiting vulnerable women, using his professional position to prey on people in crisis. He'd destroyed marriages, betrayed trust, violated every ethical standard of his profession. He deserved to lose everything he'd built on that foundation of manipulation. 3 years after the divorce, Amy and I got engaged. Simple proposal during a family camping trip with Jake and Emma. Both kids were excited. They'd been asking when we were getting married, wanting to be official siblings. We planned a small wedding. 50 people, close friends and family, celebration of genuine partnership. My brother Mike was best man. My mom cried happy tears. Jake and Emma were in the wedding party, beaming. Sarah heard about it through Jake. She called angry. "You're really going to make Jake be in your wedding to another woman?" "Jake wants to be in the wedding, Sarah. He loves A and Emma. He's excited about our family." "I'm his family. You're his mother, right? You'll always be his mother." But Amy's also part of his family now, just like if you were to remarry, your new partner would become part of his family. That's how this works. She never remarried, never even dated seriously from what I heard. The affair with Dr. Reed had been her attempt to find something she thought was missing in our marriage, and instead it had cost her everything. Her marriage, her reputation, her social circle, her relationship with our son. I don't take pleasure in her suffering, but I don't feel guilty about it either. She made her choices. I made mine. We're both living with the consequences. 5 years after discovering the affair, I'm 40, married to Amy for 2 years. Jake is 11 and thriving. Good student, lots of friends, well-adjusted despite the divorce. Emma is 12 and has become like a daughter to me. We have a blended family that works, a home full of laughter and honesty, a life built on genuine partnership. Sometimes when I'm lying in bed next to Amy, I think about that night in Dr. Reed's office, walking in and seeing Sarah with him, the moment my entire reality shattered, the devastation and betrayal and rage, and I'm grateful for it. Because that moment, as painful as it was, freed me from a marriage that was broken at its foundation. It showed me what I wouldn't tolerate. It gave me the clarity to walk away from someone who didn't value me and find someone who does. Dr. Mark Reed thought he was helping himself to an affair with a vulnerable woman. He thought he could use his professional position to exploit my marriage for his own gratification. Instead, he did me the biggest favor of my life. He revealed Sarah's true character, ended a marriage that never should have continued, and freed me to find actual happiness with someone worthy of my trust. Sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best outcome. You just have to survive it first, fight back strategically, and refuse to let it define your future. That's what I did. And 5 years later, I'm happier than I've ever been. Not despite what Sarah and Dr. Reed did to me, but in some strange way because of it. The affair destroyed my marriage, but it saved my life.